I'd like to call to order Natural Resource Board regular meeting for Tuesday, September 1st, 2020. We could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Can we have roll call?
Yes. Mr. Sadelman?
I am here.
Mr. Carano?
Here.
Ms. Lovell?
Present.
Ms. Callahan?
Present.
Ms. Mosblick?
Sorry, present. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
And Mr. Bradley?
I'm present.
Thank you.
Thank you for everybody coming. Announcements. Number 4, item A, we will welcome a new member, Mr. Marcus Bradley. Ms. Bradley, if you could tell us a little bit about yourself, if you like. If not, that's okay too. Go ahead.
Sure. Hi, I'm Marcus Bradley, and I have my first degree is in marine biology. I've since switched into computers, and I'm involved with a local Cub Scout pack here in Sebastian, and just wanted to give back to the community and volunteer some time, and I figured the Natural Resources Board was the best option.
Well, we greatly appreciate your service to the city of Sebastian, and we welcome you to the Natural Resource Board. And we look forward to your input as well as your experience. Thank you for joining. Item B, open positions. Ms. Hagler, is there open positions?
We have one alternate position open at this time.
Okay, one alternate. Get to move up the ladder there. If anybody who's listening or watching would like to apply, just come down to the clerk's office and ask how you can help. And they will guide you to the forms that you need to fill out. Under announcements, item C, Hardy Park Project.
Yeah, I just wanted to take a minute and let you know that 2 weeks ago, the week of 8/11, they began that mechanical removal of vegetation at Hardy Park, and it went from Hardy Park up to the canal at 512. And a company came in and piled a ton of vegetation on the banks and removed it to the landfill. Mostly hyacinth, honeyvine milkweed, pennywort, and duckweed. Just want to let you know that project recently occurred. I don't have any data on it at this point, so.
The mechanical, that's when they bring in the large machine and pull it out basically by hand. That's
the
great.
machine's called a Weedoo.
A Weedoo.
Weedoo.
So in that way, they're basically cutting it, right? They cut it and then remove it.
Right, and pull it up.
They're not pulling it out from the ground. They're just cutting it.
There were a lot of roots in there.
Okay.
So where you would think it's just cutting at the ground, it kind of pulls up and it got a lot of the root systems with it too.
I had a question, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Yes.
Just curious, Kim, what data you're expecting to get from that? You said you didn't have any data to share yet, but I was just curious what you would get.
As far as the amount of vegetation removed or any of that goes to the stormwater department, and I don't know. I don't have any of that data at this point.
Thank you. I did get to I rode my bike over and watched a little bit and followed up after they were done. It looks great.
Yeah, there's a lot of hyacinth, wasn't it?
What's your initial thoughts on that process? Do you think it's going to be a viable option?
It's definitely a way to remove the plants. I don't know.
Great.
I have no feedback. I don't know that without viewing data or not knowing how long the vegetation stays removed, I really can't say. I mean, it's definitely included in many successful vegetation removal programs. So
I see them up in Palm Bay a lot in their canals. Does anybody else wish to comment on anything on item 4? Okay, we'll move on to item 5, public input. Is there anybody on Zoom or anything for public input?
There are no members of the public at this time.
Okay, we'll go ahead and move on to item 6 then, new business. Under item 6, item A, Sustainable Sebastian Initiative, 5-year implementation plan. Item I, review comprehensive document.
So it's included in your packets. Basically took the notes from the last 3 meetings we've had. One was before we had that 3-month break in meetings, and then our last 2 meetings where we discussed each initiative and the goals and tasks associated with each. I took all those notes and I just put them into one big document that we really need to look at squishing into something more streamlined than this.
Now, when you say more streamlined, was it just because we were going over so much before the break, or are we going to work on
Right, and
cutting
there's
out?
some crossover with things, so we can, I'm sure, when you look at the document as a whole, there's definitely ways it can be cleaned up. I'm just letting you know, I haven't cleaned it up. I just took everything that we discussed and squished it into one big document, so.
And we're used to that. The initiative number 1 under Sustainable Sebastian was support overall reduction in the use of single-use plastics by the City of Sebastian and its business community by assisting and promoting Keep Indian River Beautiful, or CURB as we know it, and Keep Brevard Beautiful's Litter Quitter and Surf Riders Ocean-Friendly Restaurants programs, and through the identification of alternative products. Goal 1 was to create community business awareness of the Litter Quitter program and to certify local businesses. Goal 2 was to create policy to increase the use of environmentally friendly products at City Hall, as well as at city-sponsored events and all community events occurring on city property. Underneath that same Initiative 1, Goal 3, support the Florida Department of Environmental Protections, or FDEP, Leave No Trace Ethics Initiative, as implemented by FDEP's Aquatic Preserve Program. Initiative 5, support landscaping practices that promote a healthy native ecosystem by assisting and promoting Keep Indian River Beautiful's lagoon-friendly lawns and the University of Florida's Institute of Food and Agricultural Science, or the IFAS, Florida-friendly.
I'm sorry, Charles. If we could just stop at Initiative 1 and kind of discuss that one, then we can move to the next initiative before
Okay,
we just go
fine.
through reading them.
Let's do that. Back up to Initiative 1, support overall reduction of single-use plastics. Goal 1, create a community-based awareness. The task A in that was arrange a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce to discuss business outreach partnership. Have we done that?
So if I may, Mr. Chair, I think I'd like to give a little introduction here. We all came up with, about a year ago, in October 2019, yes, we came up with a resolution that outlined your 6 initiatives, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And so based on that, Kim was challenged with coming up with the implementation plan of that resolution, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So she, of course, started working with all of you on identifying what goals and tasks you would want to use or strive to do in order to meet that initiative, correct? That's an implementation plan.
Okay.
This is a 5-year timeline, okay? So it's kind of a living document. It is a way to look at how can we achieve these goals in the next 5 years. My suggestion to Kim was that you get this in place and then you come up with an annual action plan, right? So, and I think that's what she meant by item A, to determine which tasks can be completed amid COVID restrictions or maybe in this next year. Is that what you meant? Right. Okay, I'm sorry.
Right, to look at the things that we can most reasonably set a goal for, because we really can't set goals for things that involve meetings, large groups of people, personal outreach, so that was the thought.
Correct. And I went through this with Kim, and we modified some items. I think again, what as Kim said, it could be tightened up just a little bit, only in the manner that you want to be rather directive in your statements, your tasks, so you know exactly what you're what your goal is or what you're supposed to do in that task, correct? And trying to also remember that you cannot commit the city to expenditures or policies or anything like that. You don't have that role. The city council does. However, you can always encourage, support. You hear what I'm saying? You can utilizing those words to get the benefit across, so that when you actually do that task, then the city council can determine whether. I'll give you an example. Even your goal number 2, it says create policy to increase the use of environmentally friendly products. I would recommend that you say create policy to encourage the increase in use of environmentally friendly products, because if you look at A, B, C, D, that's kind of what you're doing. You're encouraging the increase for city staff. You're coming up with ways that we can either cost compare or streamline some of our product use. Does that make sense to anyone? That's what I was encouraging you all to anticipate as you go through these tasks. And I'm not sure.
It's clarifying as well.
Clarifying. Thank you, Kim. Yes, that's the correct word. And if you're ready to do that this evening, I think that's great. Or do you just want to discuss a few items and then come back with suggestions? I mean, it's completely up to you all. I'm just here to help guide that as a person who's written a lot of these, but I believe that many people on Zoom and up there have also read or written these types of guidelines and certainly can help. So that was my little spiel.
Go ahead.
Hi, this is Ruth. I had one quick question with what you just said, and that is for the goals, with the initiatives themselves. Those were kind of written in.
They're set, yes, they're set.
So they're not changing, right? Okay.
No, ma'am, that's part of the resolution.
So we could change the rest of the wording?
I believe so, and again, just to be able to make sure that you clarify what you want to do in order to meet those goals for those initiatives. That's all. That's all I was anticipating for you all to be able to do.
Thank you.
Does anybody else wish to comment right now on that?
Well, Charles,
Yes, sir.
we just received these a few days. I haven't had a chance to look at every single one of them yet. I really recommend that we postpone, give a chance to read these, go through each and every one individually, and then come back at next month's meeting and see if we can come up with a set policy.
Is there any other comments on what we spoke about so far? We'll continue talking about Task A. Can we, at least on Task A, go ahead and arrange that meeting with the Chamber of Commerce?
Well, here's the thing with Litter Quitter, I feel, is that in this time of COVID, restaurants aren't at full capacity, and takeout is a huge piece of their expenditure at this moment. But I don't think that approaching the restaurants and meeting with them about this is how would you say?
They're not going to be
Well, so
advantageous.
again, you want to, in the very near future, you want to come up with this implementation plan, and then you want to work towards your annual action plan for that year. And I hear exactly what Kim's trying to say is that once that's all done, the annual action plan for 2020 may not be Task A,
Right.
or even Goal 1.
So we could easily say that this is a post-COVID thing.
Exactly, because again, you have 5 years to work towards, 3 to 5 years. You hear what I'm saying? So, some of these things can be postponed until the next year.
But Goal 2 could easily be a pre-COVID
absolutely.
thing.
In fact,
So I already put an
I would
asterisk
love
by
that.
that. And that's a good way
I
to
would
approach
love
it.
it.
Once we have those things, then I can put those items that we know are this during COVID.
Well, what I need
I
to
can put them in a
say,
table and-
annual action plan for
Right.
2020.
Right, I can
Annual
put them into
action
a
plan, I like
table
that.
that will, describe them and lay it out better.
Task B would be to create information packets for the businesses, including Surfrider and others. We were just talking about that. Task C would be to estimate the annual cost of restaurant promotional materials, which we can work on as we go through because we don't have any of that. Task D under Goal 1 would be to work with the CURB and the KBB people to register current volunteers into the certification system. Task E would be to recruit volunteers and to hold more training events, to work with KBB to provide online volunteer certification. And task F under goal 1 would be to develop education and outreach programs for local schools.
Right, so what, Lisa, we were just saying, this is definitely a post-COVID item.
Gotcha.
So maybe we don't need to, we can review it for next week's meeting like Thomas had suggested, and we can clarify it better, clean it up. But as far as this evening, we should focus on just discussing further the ones that we could do.
Okay.
So we can mark that one off and we'll discuss it next week. But for right now, let's look at which ones fall under something that we can put in an action plan for the next year or two.
Well, I would like, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, may I?
You can step right in, Ms. Frazier.
I'm
Thank
so
you.
sorry. I would like to know if, I realize that you only received this latest document a few days ago. I understand that and you need time to digest. That's perfectly understandable. But are others feeling that there's some real work that needs to be done with this? Or are they feeling somewhat comfortable?
I think there's some work to be done with this
Okay.
yet.
Okay.
Just mostly dealing with the other 2 programs, putting them all together on the same page, the Litter Quitter and the Surf Rider. I think they're both way ahead of us right now. And then once we put everything together, then we can go to the Chamber of Commerce with everything that we have as far as goal 1 to get with them to show them what we're trying to do, because I don't think we really have that packet together yet.
Well, no, I'm sorry, I was alluding to the plan itself. I'm just focusing on the plan. I'm
Okay.
not focusing on taking an action on anything except the plan, because you need to have the plan in place before you can even move on to task A. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's what I'm asking about. Is everybody, because according to Kim, these are all, have all been discussed and flushed out from 3 or 4 different meetings. You all said these are some of the goals and goals and tasks that you would like to see moving forward. And so she has tried to summarize it all into a workable product. And that's what I'm requesting the NRB board does, is to look at these 6 initiatives with their goals and tasks and make sure it's a workable product for you all. And then this way we can move forward with real actions.
Can I get comment from the rest of the board on that?
I have a comment or two.
Hey, this is.
Go ahead. My comment is that we have spent a bunch of time looking at each one of these initiatives, and I think as you review them, they should come back in your memory that we spent a lot of time on them, and that we should be able to kind of focus today on, does it have everything that we want? Is it, are we ready to maybe clean up some language? I know Kim can help out with, like the word on goal, initiative 1, goal 2, to increase awareness, or I think maybe use different words, but, to have terms that are more fitting to the tasks underneath. That, I think that's easy, and I think we can go through and identify those items that, when we put together that action plan, we're going to be able to say these are ones that are doable first because, they're not COVID restricted things to do. So I'm in favor of continuing the review and just, if there's anything outstanding that none of us have talked about, or it's incomplete or incorrect, we can address that. And I do have one of those items that I just want to put forward. And I think after, as I was sitting through each one of these, I kept wanting to go, I think it'll fit here, but I don't know that it did. And I think a lot of what Initiative 1 is about trash, but it's very focused on single-use plastics. And I almost wish, I know that we can't reword Initiative 1, but as an example, is there something more that we can say about awareness of trash in general, and you just sent out the reminder or the invite for the virtual waste management. You know, that deals with trash and how to do it appropriately. But the last one is, you know, you've heard a theme for me of riding my bike and seeing trash. It increased during COVID in my mind. Is we have a whole bunch of highways with, you know, support the highway DOT kind of programs. You know, we could try to encourage business to take up all the spots that the DOT program would have. I was just wondering, is there anyone else who might want to think about trash other than single-use plastics and the initiative related to that, because it's completely new. I haven't mentioned it before, and here we are more at the 9th hour, so I recognize that. So I'd be interested in any feedback on that. And I guess if interested, where would it fit in? Is it appropriate?
Any thoughts on that, Lisa? I'm looking. I mean,
I'm struggling with where to put it myself.
I mean, I guess the best place for it would be under Initiative 1.
I'm looking, this is Nikki. I'm looking at Initiative 4, and we have goal number 3, increasing recycling awareness, and I wonder if that might be a place to kind of slip it in. I think that, you know, it's not just all about recycling, it's also about, you know, garbage and what happens with it, and if it's not going to the right place. Yeah, so I'll just throw that out there, but I thought that might be a place we could put it too.
And, go ahead.
Sorry, I'm just thinking, so we're thinking of like the Adopt Highway program, Ruth?
That was one thought that I had, I do see it, and I know that that program exists, so it came to mind. I know that we have other groups that come through, and we did the Indian River kind of cleanup, and that'll continue to happen, but where we can, Justin Sebastian, make a difference, maybe, you know, just keep bringing it in front of businesses, or, I mean, I was in a company in Pennsylvania that we did trash cleanup. You know, we were assigned a highway area or stretch 2 miles.
It could become part of the litter quitter to handle the trash within a radius of their property, you know, to do like, organize like a staff thing, like every Friday morning. I don't know what it is.
Well,
something like
if
that.
if I may, I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't add a 4th goal under Initiative 1, saying almost the same thing as goal number 3, where you're saying support the Florida Department of Environmental Protection Leave No Trace initiative. You could also say support the FDOT's Adopt a Highway, or, you know, program, as in.
But we're talking about like along Indian River Drive or along 512.
Oh, I understand, but it's still the same concept. You know, you're going to adopt the DOT's, you know, maybe not their program, but their
highway beautification
something
standards.
To that. There you go. Something to that effect. You're the wordsmither. That, you know, then you're covering, like you said, you all get together, and I'm not sure I even saw anything in here, Ruth, now that you're bringing it up, about the, and I know KBB usually organizes it in Brevard, I assume.
The cleanups, coastal cleanups.
Yes, the coastal cleanups. Maybe that's maybe that's a goal 4, where you support, encourage participation in highway beautification programs or coastal cleanup programs. I mean, I think I think that would, in my opinion, this is your all's initiative.
Like that's one organization. Then there's Curb Clean. They have a different name for their program. So we list those programs that do the cleanups. We encourage them to be on our. Whenever they do it, they ask me, where do you want to do it? So we can choose the areas that need it the most. We usually pick along the riverside, and then we do Schumann from US 1 up Schumann, that median area. Can get pretty messy. So that's usually the 2 areas that we pick around Earth Day. that they do the cleanups for during Earth Day, but they always ask me anywhere we want to do it, so we can spread it around. We could do multiple days of it if we wanted to, as long as we had the volunteers to do it.
And as long as we're talking about the Initiative 1, it's strictly for support the overall reduction of use of single-use plastics by the city of Sebastian and its business community. Is there any way of getting a list of the plastics already in use so that we can develop alternatives for them?
Getting a list of all the plastics that all the businesses use.
Not the businesses, and mostly just with the city of Sebastian. The businesses, they all
The city,
basically
that's
use the
different.
same
That's
thing.
under the city's operational, right?
Right, that's
there's
goal,
so much
that's goal
crossover.
number 2. That's
Yeah,
goal
it's
number
goal
2. Yeah,
Okay.
it's addressed in goal number 2.
Yeah, I have that. I mean, I have what we order usually, which is very cheap. We will never meet that cost comparison, but it's okay. We're okay with that. But I have that information. And we were going to meet with, remember Brian was arranging, so I'm going to try to get that gentleman to come back out next month, the Edward Don representative. He's the one that has a deal with Litter Quitter, that any Litter Quitter certified businesses get a % off of Edward Don sustainable products. And he's going to do a presentation on the products, and we're going to present what products the city currently uses, and he's going to throw out some alternatives in the same area, which is along the same lines of what other restaurants use and things like that. So we're going to aim for that for next month.
Okay, Task A arranged the meeting with the Chamber of Commerce. Are we ready to do that now, under Task A?
I don't think that we should begin that until we're ready to launch it, and we have.
Okay, so that'll wait. Under Task B, create informational packets for businesses, including Surfrider. Are we ready to start doing informational packets? Do we have anything for
Well,
that?
we have the packet, the information from Litter Quitter.
This is Nikki again, sorry. I'm wondering, I'm looking at task A for goal 2, so creating the comparison sheet and commonly used restaurant products, and then task B, and I just, maybe I'm not remembering correctly. Goal 1, task B, is that just the Surfrider program, the Litter Quitter program, et cetera? Or were we including in that information packet sort of a comparison sheet? So I'm wondering if there's redundancy there, and we might be able to combine those two.
Well, I guess task A is what would be up it would include estimate annual cost to represent the information packets. That would be part of it. And then it's just duplicated because it's different. It's of products currently being used at City Hall.
No, I hear what you're saying, Nikki. What you're saying is that task A is talking about restaurants and Litter Quitter. So what you're suggesting is possibly task A moves up into goal number 1. Is that what you're trying to suggest?
Yeah, and that part of the information packet, we can just incorporate in that, including the comparison sheet of commonly used products. Because I would imagine that it would go out together.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that meant to be underneath there.
Okay.
Because right underneath it says create a comparison sheet of used at City Hall break room, so.
Yeah.
Under Initiative 1 again, Task C, estimate annual costs of restaurant promotional materials. I guess we'll get that after we can start working on that after we get the comparison sheets for everything else that we were just talking about on Task A and Task B for Goal 2 would help us with Task C under Initiative 1. I don't really have any more comment on that. Task D, work with KBB and CURB to register current volunteers. We'll come to that when we're ready for it.
This is the only part that we could work on soon, and that is that KBB is working on developing an online certification system so we can be certifying volunteers during this time where they can't go out and actively recruit. We could still be training. So I know that Jessica was on that communication with Brian with KBB about that, and I'll see where they stand on it.
Okay. Task E, under Goal 1, recruit volunteers. That'll just refer back to what you just spoke about. Does anybody have any comments on anything we spoke about so far under Goal 1, Initiative 1? Most of what we spoke about is going to refer to Goal 2, it looks like. Create policy to increase the use of environmental friendly products at City Hall. Task A under that is create a comparison sheet, commonly used restaurant products as part of the litter quitter information packet. And we had just spoken about that. Going forward, we can use those comparison sheets to do the annual costs. And how would we go about getting that comparison sheet? What do we have to do to get that?
Well, we will meet with Edward Don representative next month, and that'll be the Edward Don representative will come out next month. We'll get his products comparison. Brian and I have been working on a spreadsheet, and we have many comparisons. It's kind of unfortunate that like a lot of local businesses, they get their supplies from Sam's, and Sam's does not have any environmental alternatives available at this time, like not even online. So we're trying to find ways that are easily accessible. Like we'll find some company, you can just order from that one company these supplies. So that's what Brian and I have been working on. And I do have a spreadsheet with a lot of information on it, but it's not ready to present at this time. But if anyone would like to take over that initiative, since Brian is no longer with us, I would appreciate it. And I'll send you what I have, what I've been working on.
You know, I didn't even think about everybody buying their supplies from Sam's. We could contact, I know that's a big mountain to climb, but we could contact Sam's, the Walmart people, and see where we can get them plugged into something.
If they, I mean, you know, they're going to offer it when there's a market for it. We'll just keep moving on. Create a comparison sheet of products used in City Hall break rooms and at city staff events, presented annual cost for budgeted approval. That's kind of the same as finding all the materials and everything all these other places are using, or asking for single-use plastics that the city's already using. So I think that's coming. Does anybody have any comments on any of that so far? We'll move on to Task C. Incorporate info about alternative products and costs into event vendor communications. And I think that's referring to things like Earth Day and our vendors that come on board. Are we able to cross that over into the other events for City Hall, like Shrimp Fest and 4th of July? That is
things like
city-sponsored.
that. That's what the goal for that is.
It is city-sponsored, yeah. Oh, not. Oh.
We would only be able to do things for city-sponsored events. We would be able to encourage. Okay, we're not going to demand or make people do things, but I think that we can encourage them to utilize alternative products. Does that make sense?
Oh, sure, absolutely. Because I think we only really have effect on anything that has to do with the city per se. Does anybody have any comments so far? We'll move on to Task C. Incorporate info about alternative products and costs. I just said that. I apologize. Task D. Incorporate goal into upcoming Parks Master Plan.
That was Brian's addition at last meeting because he was here for the IPM presentation. I'm sure we're going to tighten up the wording on that, on what exactly he will include, but I'm sure it's something along the lines of increasing use of sustainable single-use products at community-sponsored events or events on parks properties. But I'm going to have to get with him on the exact wording of that.
Does anybody have any comment on anything from Goal 2 or Goal 1 from Initiative 1? We'll move on to Goal 3. Support the Florida Department of Environmental Protection's Leave No Trace Ethics Initiative and as implemented by FDEP's Aquatic Preserves Program. Task A under Goal 3 is coordinate with Aquatic Preserves Program to discuss how NRB can assist in getting the message out. When you say coordinate with Aquatic Preserves, is there a specific person we have to liaison with?
Whoever's in charge of the Aquatic Preserves Program at this time. it's Emily Dark, but it may not be next week, who knows? And I've met with her, I've spoken with her a number of times on it, and she's the keeper of that program, and they get funding for that program. And I've told her that we really want to get the message out. And of course, you know, she covers a huge area. She covers all of the St. Lucie and Indian River, Spoil Islands, and beyond that, I believe. So she would definitely love our assistance, and they're just getting that program hashed out of how it's going to be implemented. And I've let her know that we would like to participate in any way possible if we can help get word out. Anyway, once they have that program completely formed and funded, then I'll have her come do a presentation, and then we can discuss how we can help.
Does anybody have any comment on task A? We'll move on to task B, discuss methods for boater outreach to keep our spoil islands free of trash. We did the coastal cleanup last year, and I worked on it again this year, and I'm still surprised at the amount of garbage coming off of these islands and off of the beaches. I wasn't out an hour and had one of them big black construction bags for contractor use full of garbage. Most of it, well, all of it obviously comes from the people using that area, but I was just surprised at how much of it was, again, just the following year. And I could have been out there another day and probably still wouldn't have made a dent in it. So what could we do for boater outreach and the people who are using the river's ecosystem for recreational purposes?
Well, I also think this is something that there are programs that exist other than the Aquatic Preserves Leave No Trace ethic. So there are other people. When Brian and I were having meetings with the Trash Free Waters program, there's an Anglers Association, there's a local Boaters Association. We see what they're doing and how we can assist them in theirs. It's kind of like, let's not invent the wheel. Someone out there is already doing outreach. How can we assist them? How can we help them? I know we discussed, like, we could take turns going to the boat docks and, like, handing out something to the boaters as they go on the launches and things like that. Of course, time of COVID, we don't really want to be person to person. But
what about the large signs like you did with the animal crossings? They were big yellow signs that had various animals on it. That was basically a warning for the cars driving by that there could be animals. Are we allowed to put up any large advertising signs like that to say, please don't let the stuff blow out your boat, or take back what you bring? I don't know, something along those lines at each municipal boat ramp?
At this time, there's a lot of signage at the boat ramps, and they're all regulatory, so they're all required to be there. I think that more signs would just cloud out the signage that's already required to be there, and that let's see what other programs may have. I'm going to reach out to a couple of them that were on the Trash Free Waters program and see what they're running.
Now, I also noticed that they have a license they have to get on their boats. Is there any way of putting any information in on that license process that say, hey, look, any garbage you bring out or you see out there, bring it all back? That would be one avenue that we could at least touch base. Because, again, we can't force anybody to do anything. And I go back to the person who governs himself the best is the person that needs to be least governed. So, we want to encourage them the best we can. And I don't know if there's any way of taking out some of the fees, maybe, if they're doing these things, or I don't know.
We can't mess with that. That's state. Yeah. That's state mandated. We don't get to make those changes locally. And I'm sure that they get they get a whole bunch of stuff handed to them when they get their license. Again, just like the signage, it becomes a lot of stuff that they get and they throw aside. So
it almost gets to be overwhelming.
Are coming up with more creative ways to outreach boaters and to get the message across to them. And I think maybe, let's see what other programs are out there.
Is there any other comments on task A or task B for goal 3? I think takes us up for our discussion for Initiative 1 then. We'll move on to Initiative 2. Supporting landscaping practices that promote a healthy native ecosystem by assisting and promoting Keep Indian River Beautiful's lagoon-friendly lawns and University of Florida's Institute of Food and Agricultural Science, or the IFAS, Florida-friendly landscape programs. Goal 1 is to create community awareness of and enhance participation in the Lagoon-Friendly Lawns Certification Program.
And that should state here that that's sponsored by CURB. I'm going to add that in there. So CURB has it on their website, and we're going to have a link for it on ours.
Is that something other than just a link? Because that seems to be a big part of what we're doing. Are we able to do a drop-down section on our website specifically promoting the landscape practices, or do we want to do just a link?
Yeah, we will. We'll have like a whole landscape section. It's certainly, not only is it a major initiative, but it's also an item that I personally get a lot of phone calls on and a lot of questions about when I'm out in the field. So there are a number of things that I want to address related to landscape and Florida-friendly landscaping. There are a lot of misconceptions, especially when residents move from out of state. So I think it's a great opportunity to reach out to them on that.
Task A under Goal 1 would be to recruit board members and volunteers to nominate themselves and or their neighbors. I nominate Tom. I'm teasing.
You haven't seen my lawn.
And Keep Indian River Beautiful currently has volunteers that will go out when they get, a site gets nominated, and they'll go out and certify it. So they have enough trained people to certify the lawns. It's not something that's as common as Litter Quitter will be, where we need more volunteers. So,
is there any additional comment on Task A? I'll move on to Task B. Estimate annual cost of lawn signage for budget approval. Is that something we're ready to do tonight? We don't really have any of that information. Okay, I'll just move on. Does anybody have any comment on Task B? I'll move on to Task C. Create We Noticed door hangers as an anonymous way to encourage residents to enroll in the program. That's just a way of saying, hey, we noticed you did some work on your yard that's really going to enhance the environment in a positive manner.
This was the senior planner that's usually with me, Bob. That was one of his things that he's worked other municipalities that they did that. And I mean, it's not something you throw on everyone's door, but I personally, I go out in the field and do inspections a lot, and I see some are just beautiful native lawns with like hardly any sod, and they really amazing. It would be nice to do something like that. But then there's also the thought that this is also creating more. Yeah.
If, I appreciate the thought on that, I really do. But when you specifically state create these door hangers, so if you're going to create something like that, that's tied to a budget. So you all need to be very much aware that that's going to come out of your budget that you generally use for Earth Day. Okay? And I would not encourage having door hangers put out anywhere, because that's just more garbage and cost. There certainly should be another way, or could be another way. You've already talked about lawn signage, promoting lagoon-friendly lawns or native landscaping. I mean, that's always a nice thing to do. I would not encourage these door hangers. I truly would not. But if that's something you all want to say, then I would ask that you change from create to consider.
Can I get an opinion from the board to change the create to consider? Mostly the door hangers end up being garbage in the yard sometimes. Maybe we can recognize them on the web or send them a letter directly, or something less expensive than printing
Maybe on the website you can have lawn of the month and
there you go.
Post it there. And
Is sending a letter supported?
Well, again, that's up
same.
to you all, but it's the same thing. There's a cost involved. There's garbage involved. There's just, I love the website. Here's a photo. Here's a nice sign that we can reuse maybe. I mean, just consider these things when you come up with these tasks. The cost, the staff time involved, the garbage that it creates that we don't even want to create. So those are things that I think are important to consider as you lay out this plan.
Does the board have a comment on that, any of that?
I think the main word that you want to use is an action word, recognize. And so we could talk about recognition for, and as you mentioned, we can do it in ways that do not include hitting our budget and or potentially creating more trash. So I like the idea of website. So I think we just need to reword here to talk about
a recognition program. Mm-hmm. I like that. I like that very much, Ruth. So that your task would be maybe not B and C, but it would be consider a recognition program for those who retain natives or plant natives or have the Florida-friendly law. And I really like that, a recognition program. And then this is something you all work on. And you can do that during COVID.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. There you go. Yeah. You don't have to do everything this year.
Do we need to change that create word right now?
No.
Okay.
No.
All right. Does anybody have any other? Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Redo it for you.
Okay. Does anybody else have any comments under task C for initiative 2? We're going to move on to goal 2 for initiative 2. Goal 2, educate residents on the benefits of implementing the UF IFAS Florida-friendly principles into their landscape. Task A under goal 2, provide information and links to the IFAS sites and information on area workshops being held through the NRB website. That's something that's going on right now, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. We always have provided links and posted the schedule for the workshops being held. Now they've been doing some online workshops, and I haven't gotten the new schedule on that, so I'll get that information from Jackie and Christine.
Does anybody else want to comment on task A? Task B would be enhance the City Hall demonstration garden with new plantings, weedings, and added signage. I have to say that looks good.
We have one of those?
What's that?
We have one of those?
Yeah, it's right out here.
Okay.
We did the whole thing last year, and it's really, really native. It looks good.
We had a lot of plants donated a couple months ago from the Audubon Society, and that's how it looks so nice right now, because we got a lot of great plant natives that do amazing out there, and we hope to continue partnership with them to enhance and continue to enhance the natives in there. But it's looking really pretty, isn't it?
Oh, it's looking great.
A garden that size really has to grow into it. The second you plant it, it's not going to look like exactly how you want it, but it's growing in nicely.
No, you and other people who've volunteered out there have done a tremendous amount of work. When they say the signage, is that an expenditure we have to do, or is it something we have to create, or we want to, do we have it in the background?
I would like to see groups of clusters of natives planted with a sign identifying what they are. So
that'd be nice.
When people see them, they're like, oh, that does great. That looks really nice. What is that? Now they know.
Yeah, something similar to the sign like they put on plants at Home Depot. It tells you what they are, how big they grow, what color the flowers are. That'd be nice.
There's a huge difference in how that signage would happen. That could be laminated piece of paper on a stick, or it could be engraved in metal. There's a huge difference in what it could be.
Okay, so without getting into all these details, I think that you need to stay focused on, task C then takes you to determine the cost of demonstration garden improvements for budget approval. So maybe you combine B and C to say, consider enhancements to the City Hall demonstration garden,
Ongoing maintenance?
for, consider cost of new plantings and signage, things of that nature. Right now, you're just saying that you're going to enhance the city hall with new plants, weeds, and weeding and signage. And I think you need to back off from that and go more towards considering, or again. So I would suggest that you combine B and C to state what it is you'd like to achieve, but, knowing that you have to determine the cost of that first.
Consider cost and potential partnerships
Sure.
for that. IFAS may actually have signage for natives or.
Okay.
Are local businesses able to participate in this with donations to the city, or?
Well, that's something that you can explore
Okay.
in this task.
And so saying consider
part
cost
of
and
this task.
potential partnerships.
And
Any-
I would say that task E is kind of rolled into that too, where it appears that all of you would like to make the goal is that you utilize some of the public spaces available to us to potentially do these demonstration gardens, to encourage people and educate people on what natives are. And so if that's your goal, then perhaps you could wrap B, C, and E in together.
Yeah.
It's just a suggestion,
No, I think that definitely works together.
and that you make it as in, we should do more of this, but again, don't tie your feet to the fire, because what you want to avoid, and I know I'm sounding like an ogre, and I don't mean to, but those of you that have worked in a field where it's an ongoing program, and future Lisa and future Kim now inherit it, and then you have, future resident going, hey, this said you were supposed to do this, and you didn't do it. You see what I'm saying? And not by any means that they didn't want to do it or didn't strive to do it, but it couldn't be done or it was cost prohibitive. Do you understand what I'm saying? So that's why I'm just asking that you all look at this with that kind of view, that this is a 5-year iterative, program. If the goal is that you want to enhance or utilize, basically, public spaces to educate the community on native plantings and, with the use of demonstration gardens, then I would wordsmith it in that manner, that that's what you would like to do, and not be very specific about that you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to add signage, yada, yada. Through things like demonstration gardens that may include. And then this way it gives you a broader range of things that you can do in those demonstration gardens, because you don't know in 5 years what could be out there and what's the opportunity out there.
Products such as
right?
native demonstration.
This is the kind of thinking that I go through, as a planner when you write these things. And I know that teachers do it and lawyers do it and, other government agencies do it. So that's all I'm asking you to consider. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Charles. Please proceed.
I
don't
greatly
mean to
appreciate
stop
that,
you.
because we would just keep adding on and adding on. There'll be new folders, new door hangers. We call that mission creep. So we want to keep the mission creep down.
Thank you. That's perfect.
This is
I love
exactly
it.
why I asked Lisa to be here for this meeting.
To be the tough broad here, I guess. I don't know.
And we appreciate your input, Mrs. Frazier. Anybody have any other comments on task C or D? We'll go on to task E, coordinate with local organizations in the addition of native demonstration gardens across city parks.
That's what we just discussed, that we're going to bring up to combine with B and C.
Okay. Does anybody on the board have any input on anything we spoke about with Goal 2? We'll move on to Goal 3 for Initiative 2. Goal 3, Set the example for sustainable landscapes on city properties. Task A, collaborate with the Pelican Island Audubon Society in promoting their Trees for Life program and planting more trees at city parks and properties. Can I get comment on that? The Audubon Society has a program where you basically get free trees, and you have to go down to the Audubon Society main place, pick up your trees, sign them out. They give you a little card telling you everything that's going on. As far as collaboration is concerned, you want the NRB to be and have them on our website as well, Pelican Island Audubon Society, and everything that they're doing with this tree planting program. That would be one way of collaborating. They've come to our meetings before. I'm sure they would be glad to come and speak again. We don't want to, we're trying to avoid printing up anything, so I think it's just a matter of dealing with the people at this time and getting them on board. That would take care of task A, I believe.
That would also mean collaborating with the Leisure Services Department and Leisure Services Director.
Right. Is there any other comment from the board for task A? Task B, encourage increased native landscaped and mulched areas, decreasing sodded areas where applicable. And I think that just goes into the Florida-friendly programs and everything else that goes along with that. With the information that we're going to give everybody, the new homeowners, the new businesses for native landscaping, decreasing sodded areas.
That's the parks.
The parks?
Are the only places that are sodded, right?
Well, this is concentrating on city properties. I think the terminology should be, public spaces. And, some public spaces we can look at, it's part of a more nature-based maintenance program that we are working towards. And, of course, grass, sod, is very maintenance heavy, but in many areas it's necessary also. So, there's a good mix, and I think that's where I'm interpreting this is where this group has been going. Am I correct?
Yeah, we also had this sprung out of, we also had this into the IPM plan as a list of the future considerations of what they could do, and it was based on the use of the parks and spaces. So if that's a sports park, that's obviously not the athletic fields aren't where we consider these things. These things are considered in passive parks where people just walk around the trail. So do we need as much sod? Then when there's an opportunity, we've encouraged that they expand landscaped areas instead. And that's written into the IPM plan the same way.
Does anybody else on the board have any comments on the task B? If not, we'll move on to Initiative 3. Initiative 3, provide recommendations for city policies and codes related to natural resources. Goal 1, provide input throughout the comprehensive plan review process. Goal 2 would be to assist city in creation of an integrated pest management plan for both the city's leisure services and stormwater departments. With a goal 3, assist the city in revision of the tree protection and landscape ordinances. Under goal 1, provide input throughout the comprehensive plan review process. Task A would be to host a public workshop during Natural Resource Board meeting to discuss the draft of the conservation and coastal management element. Now, we spoke about that.
That's why there's a date there, because it's already been accomplished.
Yeah.
So, and then task B has already been accomplished as well, so we can move.
Does anybody have any comment on task A? Task B would be to staff to compile all workshop notes and submit to consultants for inclusion in the final plan. I think we've already done that too. Any comment on task B? Task C would be to I'm gonna apologize again, staff to keep NRB informed of all workshops and comp plan related meetings and documents throughout the process.
And I've sent you the links for any meeting minutes, and as soon as it was posted on the our city webpage, I gave you the link to that so you can look over all the documents. And Lisa, you want an update on that process and where they are with it?
No, I want to talk about this plan.
This isn't the time to update on that.
I felt very informed during the IPM, the Integrated Pest Management process. We were sent updates. We had 3 members of our board on there, tried to stay in our lane, and as mostly for myself to stay in my lane. But I felt very informed during the whole process, and I'd like to show my appreciation for that. That was really good. Does anybody else have any comments on Initiative 3? I think we pretty much got that handled, too, it looks like, with everything that we've done so far. Any comments?
Hey, this is Jessica.
Hi, Jessica.
I did have a question, really recommendation too, with our other Goal 2 and Goal 3 under that same initiative. There's an opportunity for the NRB to do kind of like a final review or have a discussion of that final document. Can we add a task D or add some kind of language that the NRB would be able to review or at least have a discussion before it's completely finalized?
You mean for the IPM plan? Jessica?
The comp plan, no, for Goal 1. I was just making the example that we are able to have a final review of the other documents with Goal 2 and Goal 3. Can we add in Goal 1 where we get to review, the NRB gets to review that final document before it gets to a final stage?
For the entire comprehensive plan, is that what you're asking, ma'am?
Thank you for asking that question. This would only be specific to the NRB board sections that we were involved with.
The conservation and coastal management element, we would be happy to, I mean, it's on, well, the final that's going to be presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission has not been loaded onto the website yet, but when it is, you certainly can be notified it's on the website. But as part of the comprehensive plan process, NRB doesn't make a final recommendation to City Council. The Land Planning Agency, which is the PZ Commission, makes the final recommendation to the City Council. But the NRB is certainly welcome to review it prior to review it again in its final form prior to the Planning and Zoning Commission's final, I'm trying to get all the wording correctly, final recommendation to the City Council. Did that make sense to you? And that's going to be on October 15th. So if certainly by your October NRB meeting, you could review the final version, but I'd have to look at a calendar.
I think
does that make
really
sense?
It does, and I think to reiterate in what I'm interpreting from the comment, because I know that we've asked, the board has asked kind of status, and Kim, thanks for sending links, and we have received that. But it sounds like to me there will be no other workshops unless we attend some other workshop or make comments on like the October 15th date. That we have the time now to individually make comments to the comp plan and send them to Kim, but there are going to be no other types of NRB specific as we did back in March. There are not going to be any other group opportunities. It's going to, within NRB, it will be us individually making comments on this document.
That is correct. That is what's scheduled. Yes, ma'am. The coastal and conservation element was presented to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I can't recall what date. I apologize. It's on the website. The calendar is on the website. And at that time, the NRB members could have come and presented their individual comments, or At this point, there's still an opportunity for you all to give us your individual comments. If the NRB board would like to look at the final document prior to it going to PZ Commission, it would be available to you to review on the October 6th, your October 6th NRB board meeting. However, the comments that you make on October 6th could be shared with the PZ Commission by October 15th, but they certainly would not be incorporated in the version that PZ has in front of them. You know, we have to deliver it to the PZ by October 1st. So if you want to make comments as a board on that element, you're more than welcome to. And then, and try to remember that the PZ Commission is a recommending body for the comprehensive plan. They then recommend to the City Council, and the City Council has final say as to if it gets sent up to DEO or not. So if you all feel that changes need to be made, you can always submit those, and the council and the PZ can consider them. Does that make sense? If you feel that that needs to happen at that point, that the final version doesn't meet NRB's requests or standards. But just be aware that the version that goes to them on the 15th is not going to incorporate NRB's comments from the 6th. That's all I'm saying. It's already incorporating your comments from the workshop. That's already been incorporated in there. Does that make sense? Your first workshop that you all had, it's all been incorporated into that element. But if you have further comments, you'll have to get them to me before the 1st of October, right?
And I think it's important to highlight for the rest of the board members, you know, to take the time individually then, since we're not going to have a workshop dedicated specifically again for this, because I know that we kind of streamlined aggressively through that first workshop. And, you know, I actually haven't even made the opportunity myself to review if everything had been incorporated from that March meeting, from that link that Ken had sent. So I think it's really important that we make the time then, if we're not going to come together as a board to individually do this. I would still recommend that we can, I mean, and maybe it's me just feeling strongly about coming together to review it again as a group, and maybe none of the other board members feel that way. And if that's the case, then we just need to individually make time to review it. Very important that we do that.
Again, ma'am, I don't want to suggest that you can't come together as a group, but I would believe that that would be at the October meeting, and then all those comments could be presented to the PZ and to the City Council at a later time.
Jessica, do you feel that we should hold a special meeting before? Because we're not going to be able to have any impact any other way unless we act as a board, and we're not allowed to speak about this individually outside of this dais. So do you feel that a special meeting would take care of what you're thinking right now, to where we all get together and...
I mean, I was with the understanding that we would have additional workshops individually for, well, not individually, but for our NRB board. I know that we could have attended the multiple workshops that was available. I understand that and appreciate the opportunity to be able to do that. But I thought that we would have one for NRB and what we had made comments on, kind of going back through it, just as we're doing with this document. You know, we start with one iteration, we go through and make comments. I thought that we would be able to do that. Again, I haven't made the opportunity to review the document to see if all of our comments, or at least the group that I was involved with, if some of those have been incorporated back in March. I don't think it's going to hurt for us to get together to review it by any means. But again, if I'm the only one that feels that way, then I'll make the time to do it myself.
Well, let's see what the rest of the board says. Can I get comment from the rest of the board on the comments Jessica just had about perhaps getting together as one to see what was added and what was left off? Does anybody else have that
I
same
concur
concern?
with Jessica.
I concur with Jessica as well. Can I get a consensus from the rest of the board?
This is Nikki, and I would agree too. I don't think it would hurt or is a bad idea. So I think I would recommend it as well.
Does anybody else have any comments on that before we ask for a meeting that we can get together before our next meeting? Because we're not going to have any impact after October 1st, or whatever that October meeting is.
No. That is not what I'm stating. I'm just telling you that the final version that's going to go in front of PZ Commission is going to be put together by October 1st and delivered to them. Now, that does not mean at their October 15th meeting they can't consider NRB's comments and add it in at that time. That's perfectly fine. I just want to warn you that the version that they have in front of you is not going to include your comments from an October 6th meeting, right? I'm sorry, I'm just looking at the calendar and I have timelines that I have to meet. So,
if there is something that needs to be done, we don't know about it right now because we only know what we know. And I haven't seen, like I had a very valid concern about changing the requirements for natural disaster. That's what I had brought up.
And if you look in there, it has been done.
Excellent, because obviously the city went bonkers since then, and that would have fixed it. I haven't seen the additions. I don't think anybody else has, and we won't be able to make any changes after our next meeting because they're going to have everything written in stone.
Nothing's written in stone until the city council's second adoption meeting, and that's going to be in the spring. So the best time, though, to get those comments to us is by October, let's just say.
By October?
Okay. Let's just say by October.
Yeah, that puts us in that same position of we have to get together.
Yeah, well, you have a meeting on October 6th. Do you know?
So this is what I'm thinking. If we have a meeting October 6th, then we put in the most recent version of that comp plan element into the agenda packet, and you have time to review it.
And by then, our
our
consultant is making it so very easy for the Planning and Zoning Commission, who has worked really hard and very diligently reading and rereading this document. And so we know that we have comments from our public, we have comments from the different boards, and when they're all written down and incorporated into those particular elements, they will be underlined. What we've also done, or what the consultant will do, is provide a spreadsheet showing where some of the changes have been moved to in different elements, okay? Because as you update one element, it may no longer really be appropriate for that element, so you move it to a different element. So there's going to be a spreadsheet showing all of that. You all can be privy to that at your October 6th meeting, because on October 1st, I need to deliver it all to Planning and Zoning Commission. So all of that information would be privy to you on October 6th. When you review it on October 6th, and if you have some changes or modifications or whatever that you feel need to be made, those can be put in the minutes or whatever, those recommendations can be provided to the P&Z Commission on October 15th. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I'm thinking so.
And so they can consider it then and consider incorporating it or considering not, or just a few of the items. Nothing is written in stone until, and again, has to go in front of the council twice, has to go up to DEO for their review, the state. So we've got a little ways in the process, but I would recommend that your comments get to the P&Z Commission on October 15th. Does that make sense? If you all want to have this as your agenda item on October 6th, you can be accommodated, and it will be shown the changes that were put in there.
And
Does that make sense?
come October 6th, because you're turning in this report October 1st.
To the Planning and Zoning Commission, yes, sir,
if there's
because they need 2 weeks to look at it.
If there's something that we either don't agree with or want to change, will we be able to do that at that October 6th meeting?
Yeah, we will discuss it. I will make the list from the meeting. I'll have an action list or some way, and then we'll decide the best way to present it to P and Z.
On
Whether
October
it's
15th.
Giving whether it's a presentation or.
That is
I will make
correct.
sure that these ideas are represented at the P and Z meeting on October 15th.
'Cause
That's correct.
Other than that meeting, that'll be our last chance as a group to have impact by October 15th for P and Z. And we really, I mean, I'd love to get with everybody after hours and go down to our favorite establishment and talk about this, but we're not allowed. So we're trying to stay within the lanes. And Jessica has a valid concern, and we just want to make sure that the concerns from NRB are being addressed, and if they're not, we have an opportunity to have it addressed or take whatever position we have to make sure that they're addressed. And
The packet for that meeting is going to go out.
October 1st.
yeah,
The
October
P&Z
1st.
packet goes out October 1st.
Correct.
So I can get that to you, so you'll be able to get that information October 1st. If that's the only thing on our agenda, we can have that out ahead for you. So it's not going to be you have 2 days to look over it. You'll have plenty of time. And the current version, which may not even be very different, is
Correct.
available online right now, and I've given you the links to that weeks ago. I'd be happy to send the links out again if you'd like, but it's all available online. So I don't know that many changes will be made between now and then on that element anyway.
Jessica, does that answer your question?
And just to make sure, it does, and to make sure that I understand, what would be the difference if we went ahead and say we had a meeting tomorrow? Would we still be submitting our comments for changes, for consideration to the PZC? Or could we go ahead and incorporate those changes without their consideration if before the October 1st date?
You're sure, I don't see why not. We could just, I'd have to make it very clear that these were additional changes that were requested by the NRB when I presented to the PZ on October 15th, because they have already reviewed that element and made their comments. So I would just have to make it very clear to them that these are additional comments that have come in. But that's true, ma'am, with anybody in the city who may be listening. If you have comments regarding any element of the comp plan that you can read and review online, please send those comments to our department. And we would be happy to consider them and put them into the plan. This is your plan. We work for you.
All of our notes from the first workshop, we had a compiled list, Bob and I literally took it, laid it right here with the comp plan. That's the version of it that's right now, that with the element. And I went and checked off each item as it was included in this plan to make sure that it was all in. Anything that wasn't, we addressed it directly.
And that is correct. Kim and I have read that element, I don't even
Many
want to know
times.
how many times. But again, I'm
Just so you
encouraging
don't think
you
that
all
your comments fall to the wayside and we're like, yeah. No, it really is. Each item is in
to
there.
please look at it and assure yourselves. We don't want anyone to walk away from this process thinking that they weren't heard and that it did not incorporate what they felt this community needs. So again, I encourage it all, and if you want to have an early meeting instead of the 6th, that's fine, but please don't think that if you wait until the 6th, that your recommended changes would not be incorporated. The PZ Commission could say, yes, we like everything that the NRB has now said, we'd like to incorporate it in, and then it all gets put together and is sent to the the City Council. Okay? So I just want to reassure you all, these are my deadlines, okay? But you have time in between, and everybody has time in between to always provide their comments.
And as a board, I think that's our biggest concern, because we all have individual comments, but we want to act as one. Jessica, do you feel that we can finish everything we need to do at our next meeting, or would you like to get a vote for holding a special meeting between now and then?
I think if everyone, because it sounds like it would maybe be a little bit easier to incorporate before October if we had a special meeting, but I know that's, you know, maybe it's after hours and there's other logistics that go in with that. So, I mean, I'll, you know, see what the other board members think, but what I would do or recommend is to individually go ahead and review it now and go ahead and put on to our meeting for the next October meeting, so that we come to that meeting prepared with any concerns, or that we've already reviewed the plan up front, unless everybody wants to have a special meeting in between.
And again, as soon as that version is available, I will make sure that that agenda gets out to you ahead of time.
Is there any additional input on that? Does anybody feel that we need to do a special meeting? Because we would have to vote on that. Does anybody have any? Go ahead, Nikki.
This is Nikki. I think that waiting until October 6th is completely fine. We'll have it in plenty of time for everyone to review. Like Jessica said, we can review it ahead of time and be ready with our comments. So, and regardless of when we put those comments in, like Ms. Fraser said, it's going to come with the caveat that this was recommended by an NRB, by the NRB board. So I'm fine with waiting until the 6th.
If we find something so egregious that we're like, hey, what is this? Would we be able to call a special meeting between now and then without being up here?
If you find something that big, just let us know.
Yeah. I think we're just concerned we're running out of time, and we haven't had normal discussions and everything else.
We don't need a special meeting for us to talk to the consultant.
Okay, so I'm going to take it basically through consensus. We do not need a special meeting between now and October 6th, that we can individually review what we need to review. As an individual, if you find something so egregious that you need to bring it in front of the board, how do we address that? Do we send all communications to you, right?
You send it to me.
Okay.
You can take a picture of a printed out version that you hand wrote notes on. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Whatever way you want to get it to me. It doesn't have to be very formal.
Is there any additional comment on any of that by anybody on the board? Okay, so we're definitely looking forward to that October 6th meeting. We're going to move on to Goal 2 then, under Initiative 3. Goal 2 is to assist the city in creation of integrated pest management plans for both the city's leisure services and stormwater departments. I think we've done that.
We've done that.
Well, we've done that.
We're working on the second one.
Yeah, we just haven't started the process with stormwater yet.
And I'd like to thank the board members who served on that. I had full-grown men coming up to me telling me how hard they were working and how much time and effort. And I'd also like to thank Mayor Dodd for setting up these programs to address the city's spraying issues and the weeds. And I'd like to thank Mayor Dodd for putting the Natural Resource Board on that program eternally. Basically, we're going to be dealing with this long after we're gone. So I'd like to thank Mayor Dodd for looking at the spraying and the other issues related to the integrated pest management. We'll move on to Task B. The IPM subcommittee presents final IPM plans to NRB for approval before bringing to the City Council. And I think we did that last meeting, and that went really well. Does anybody else have any comments on Task A or B?
I do. This is Jessica.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I know that we, if I recall correctly from our last meeting or the meeting before, it was recommended, or I had recommended to separate those two, because I'm with the understanding that when we say IPM plans, that includes both, and we haven't developed or finalized the stormwater plan. If that's correct, would it be easier to read and understand if we separated those into two different tasks or two different plans? Or maybe not mark it as complete?
Thoughts on it? I don't know.
Do we have any other comment from the board?
Once they're completed, they'll be on the same process and the same reporting schedule, so.
Did that answer your question, Jessica?
But, and maybe it's my misunderstanding then, I thought the NRB was going to be involved with the stormwater one, the stormwater plan.
Right, that's why it says board members to volunteer on both IPM subcommittees. And then we can make it into a separate if that's what you want, but I felt like it kind of grouped together since the process was the same.
Kim, do you know when that will start, the stormwater management plan?
I do not. That's the stormwater department.
The stormwater management plan, does that take into account the swale issue everybody's dealing with right now?
The master stormwater plan? The stormwater master plan?
Yes, ma'am.
It includes all of the drainage
All
in the
that?
city.
Okay.
Not the IPM plan, though. That's.
Jessica, does that answer your question? You need any more comment on that?
So do we want to separate it is the question.
Well, isn't the plan that after the second plan is made to merge the two into a single plan?
So maybe just don't mark it as complete.
It's not.
Or make a note that the section 1 is complete, but we're working on section 2. It's kind of misleading if you're not informed of what these plans actually, what plans means. When you're reading it from a council member, they may not, be on the same page as us.
That's fine. We'll separate into two goals. It's not a problem. And once I put it into a spreadsheet, it'll make more sense separated.
Is there any additional comment on Task B? Task C, annual reviews are brought to NRB for discussion before presentation to City Council. Again, I'd like to thank City Council and Mayor Dodd for bringing this and letting us participate in that. Does anybody have any comments on Task C? Okay, we'll move on to Goal 3 for Initiative 3. Goal 3 is assist the city in the revision of tree protection and landscape ordinances. Task A, board members volunteer to serve on subcommittees. Task B, updates and discussion provided at each NRB meeting. And Task C is to draft an ordinance presented to NRB for approval prior to City Council for final approval. Under Task A, board members volunteer to serve on subcommittee. Have we formed a subcommittee for this yet?
No, this is something I won't, we're looking at for this
We will in the
year.
future, yes.
Okay, because this is a 5-year dance.
Correct, yes.
And so we're really looking to what we're doing next. Okay, and then me or whoever's next up here can bring it up. Is there any additional comments on Task A? Task B, updates and discussion provided at each NRB meeting. I think we do that pretty well. Is there any comments on Task B for updates and discussion provided at each NRB meeting?
It's all grouped as the same. It's something we'll approach, so.
Right. Since Goal 3 has been put off, I think we can move on.
Okay. If nobody has any comments for any of the tasks under Goal 3, we'll move on to Initiative 4. Reducing the city's operational carbon footprint by promoting sustainable energy resources through the implementation of sustainable technologies where practical. Goal 1, add water bottle refill stations at all city parks and fountains. The task for that is to secure funding added to currently proposed budget.
This was Brian's update at our last meeting.
Yep.
That he's added it. We'll see. The budget's not finalized yet, but it's a goal of his department.
Excuse me, I added the water bottles and the bike racks into our CIP under sustainability. So those are in the budget right now. They're in the CIP right now. And if the budget gets approved by the end of this month, then hopefully we'll have funding to move forward with buying these items, goal 1 and 2.
Okay, that takes care of goal 1 and goal 2. Does anybody have any comments on either one of those? Goal 3 would be to increase recycling awareness and availability to the public. Task A under that would be to work with waste management to host regular household waste and shredded recycle events. Task B would be to add information on what is and not recyclable to NRB website and TV channel. Task C would be to define exact costs and discuss possible funding sources to assist waterfront businesses in acquiring recycling. At Task A, work with waste management to host regular household waste and shredded recycle events. That's part of what we do at Earth Day, isn't it? But
Correct.
It's not on a regular basis.
Correct.
All right.
And that one's been rescheduled to the end of this month, the 29th.
What do we have to do to be able to do something on a regular basis? Is there anything we have to do?
Coordinate with waste management.
That's it? That's all? Okay.
So we didn't have one on Earth Day, but we're having one at the end of this month, so.
Does anybody have any comments with Task A, Goal 3? Task B, add information on what is and not recyclable to the NRB website and TV channel. And I think our media people are taking care of that. That was a great presentation you had with the lady from the Indian River County Waste Management people. Mm-hmm. And I mean, I had people afterwards say how informative she was, and a lot of people didn't know that you have to have clean recyclables, clean aluminum foil, clean plastic.
It's
wrappers.
amazing how many people mess that up, and that does a lot of damage to.
I learned way more during that presentation than I should have.
Yeah, I agree with you. That was a really good presentation.
Yeah, I'm cleaning my aluminum foil now. Who would have thought it would have wasted a whole truckload of recyclable materials out of just a couple of pieces of dirty garbage? Would never have thought that.
Pizza boxes are probably a
Pizza
big thing
boxes
too.
must
Yeah.
That got me.
Killing
you
us.
can't do anything with them except throw them out.
Is there any additional comments on Task A or Task B?
I'm going to add to that to collaborate with Sue Flack on the outreach in the future on that. So
Okay.
Put that.
Thank you. Task C under Goal 3 would be to define the exact costs and discuss possible funding sources to assist waterfront businesses in acquiring recycling. We would get with waste management with that, wouldn't we, to define what they need to do to set up the program at each business, and then they would give us a cost estimate or develop a white sheet on businesses across the board that they could think of. Is there any way of tying that into the CRA?
No, that would be under your.
Yeah, we'll have to define the cost, and then we can discuss where it fits. You know, maybe there's a grant available. Maybe CURB has a grant available. Who knows? So once we have this cost clearly defined, then we know where to help businesses approach help in funding on that.
When I was doing the research on that, it looked like it was set up specifically by the state to develop small to medium business to recycle commercial, whatever they need to recycle. And it was specifically taken out of the regular recycling program where we all have the blue bins. And I didn't know, is there some way we can do something to make it not so hard for businesses to set it up? No.
That's not that's not something determined by us.
And
Any
by
more than we
business,
can
I
determine
think
with us.
mainly you're talking about restaurants, and restaurants routinely do not recycle because everything ends up being contaminated.
Right.
And they don't have the manpower, especially now, they can't afford $1 to recycle. We might want to put that task off for a later time.
We don't want to put more bills on people, but at the same time, we don't want the environment to suffer as well, regardless of what the cost is. Is there any other discussion on task C from anybody? We're going to move on to goal 4. Increase opportunity for resource conservation and maximize recycling availability within city operations. Task A under goal 4 would be to ensure that every office and copier has a recycle can. That's just for city business, like City Hall and things, or is that?
That already pretty much exists, so that's an easy win.
It's an easy win. Yay, we'll take it. Do we need any like recognition programs for City Hall? Like we would do for businesses, because a lot of times the people who work and make a career out of City Hall aren't ever recognized. And since I've been here for the last going on 3 years now, I've totally changed my opinion on what I think of City Hall and the people in those careers, and I see how hard they work, and maybe the recognition would be something, but that's another day. Does anybody have any other comments on Task A? Task B would be educational outreach to staff through emails, signage in community areas on simple ways to reduce, reuse, and recycle. And again, I think that's going to be mostly through your daily meetings, your weekly game plan meetings.
I think most of government now is done electronically anyway.
Yeah.
They're not generating a lot of paper like they used to.
No, we could look at some of the signage that Stu Fleck had with the county on recycle outreach. Maybe they have signage that already applies that they'll provide, and we could put some in by the cans and departments.
Anytime we say signage, are we saying budget at the same time?
No, I said that they would provide.
Yeah.
Like a sign, just like a
There we go.
Scotch tape paper sign. You know
what are your signs? You got the sign making machine.
I don't have a sign maker.
I thought you did.
I have a printer.
There we go. Okay. Task A, Task B. Any other comments on any of those things? Task C would be create a self-audit criteria for city office operations. Now that would just fall under what is being used, how it's being disposed of.
Like here's the way that in an office you can reduce your use of resources, right, and reduce, reuse, recycle. And then here's a table, and you can self-audit, and they're like, departments can approach that individually. Are we doing this? You know, how often do we do that? And it just creates a constant awareness when you do that self-audit of what you should be doing.
You know, I really think that could be combined with Task B because it's educational, right?
Combine
so
Task
it's
B
part
and
of your
Task C.
educational outreach to provide information on how staff can reduce, reuse, and recycle. I mean, just simplify it in that manner. I mean, if you'd like, of course, you know, creating the self-audit criteria is kind of neat. But I think that could be subjective too, so. Are you doing this?
And I think the city already does a good job in-house of recycling when they can, from what I can see. I mean, I go through the city some, not as much as I probably should, but I see the effort being made not to just throw everything in the garbage. Does anybody else have any comments on anything in Goal 4? Okay, we'll move on to Initiative 5. Protect and restore the water quality of all of our city's water bodies by supporting the city's stormwater program in creation of toolkits emphasizing best management practices, low-impact design, and green infrastructure. Boy, that sounds like we could talk about that for next year. Under Goal 1, provide support for stormwater department outreach initiatives. Task A would be to discuss activities or programs that can support the implementation of Stormwater Department's public participation and outreach requirements as defined in the city's National Pollutant Discharge and Elimination System, multiple separate stormwater system permit as administered by the FDEP. That sounds like there's other agencies we have to keep in mind.
It's one thing, it's just a lot of acronyms, and I had to write them all out, so I apologize. But again, we have to think about the future Kim and future NRB and how clear it is on what exactly it is. And we discussed this at the last meeting, that this is, there are some outreach and interactive components to it that I think the NRB could really support the Stormwater Department in initiating, and that was it.
Would we be able to get a list of those activities that we can support so we know exactly what?
When that becomes a task we address, then.
Okay. Does anybody have any other comments on Task A under Goal 1? Task B would be to assist the residents in understanding BMPs and LIDs in relation to the city's stormwater fee credit program.
So what the fee credit program is there's a stormwater tax, and you can get credits, let's say, sorry. There's a stormwater fee, and if, let's say you're a business and you have a stormwater pond that gives you credits that you can use to reduce your fee that you pay. And a lot of residents and businesses aren't aware of this program. So we're just saying that we can assist the residents in understanding what they could do to reduce that fee through this program.
And if I may, I might suggest that we take Task B and move it to Goal 3. And I'm sorry to skip ahead, Mr. Chairman, but when I look at this, and we're talking in Goal 3 about assisting in the creation of toolkits for BMP's LID and green infrastructure, we're in the process of selecting a stormwater master plan firm, and they will be doing the bulk of that work. But I like that you're suggesting assistance. You know, you could review it, obviously, and give comments towards it whenever that happens. But I think that's when the Task B, where, you know, once that toolkit, once the BMPs and LIDs are identified and put together, then this board could assist in getting the word out on what those are so that people do seek. We sent out postcards to every single property owner that incurs the stormwater fee, and said to them that their fee credits available, and even for simple modifications to their property, you know, incorporating, you know, a roof drain, I forget what it's called now, but like, I want to say cistern.
A rain barrel?
Like a cistern?
It's like a cistern or a rain barrel or anything like that, planting natives. There's credits to your stormwater fee that you can attain by doing these simple, you know, implementable activities on your property. And so we sent out all these letters, and we haven't received one inquiry, unfortunately. So again, that's what this is all about, okay? That's what, you know, creating the LID, BMP, green infrastructure stuff. It's to help our city be able to do implementable or small consecutive type of changes that build on each other. And it's not just for storage, it's for water quality improvements. So again, going back to Goal 3, that's what that's all about. That may need to be tightened up when I review it now, because it seems like it's a lot of tasks for something that will be more, NRB will review it, possibly, you know, maybe that's what you all really want to do. It sounds like you would want to review it and get educated yourself and help to educate others on it. And I'm talking about BMPs, LIDs, green infrastructure, and be part of that whole process. And I don't mean to put words in your mouth, but that's what I'm reading
So,
that this board has put together. I'm sorry, Kim, go ahead.
sorry, the toolkits for the BMPs, LID, green infrastructure planning, that is part of the stormwater master plan, correct? Correct. So we can say, review the toolkits for blah, 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 and review and support, review and support as presented and as part of the stormwater master plan.
You know, and actually, one of the old stormwater master plan iterations, I want to say from 2013, has a whole section on BMPs and LIDs. So it's not a new concept for the city. They've just come up with better ways of doing it and more economical versions, and that's what we kind of want to incorporate. So I'm just throwing it out there that I think that goal number 3 could be tightened up a little bit. Don't mean to jump ahead, but again, task B from goal 1 appears to be more appropriate for that goal. Am I correct, Kim,
Yeah,
when you read it?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Have that to go over now that it becomes supporting, basically goal 3 is supporting the goals and initiatives presented in the stormwater master plan, right? And so that's how it falls under there.
Are there any additional comments for task B under goal 1? We'll move on to goal 2. Assist in planning community presentations at NRB meetings and/or Oyster Garden site from guest speakers and city staff on water quality issues. Task A under that is identify topics that are relevant to current water quality concerns in our area and list possible speakers on topics. Any comment on that?
Again, these are things that we'll have to wait until we can have people gather. Now, we can have them speak here. So if anyone is involved in any organization or, you know, it used to be the role of the NRB was that the members would regularly bring a speaker at every meeting. We had them for a while. And I'd like to readdress that. I think we can all agree that having the county come out and speak about recycling was really helpful. And now that we have a lot of these goals and initiatives laid out, I'm sure there's other organizations we could contact to speak as well. I think it really helps when you have the person running these programs in front of you to ask questions, and helps give you ideas on how we can best support their goals.
Are each of the board members able to just ask anybody they want to come up, as long as it's relevant to be a speaker?
Yeah, you just let me know, like, I'm going to ask so-and-so, and then, well, it's probably going to be somewhat environmental, and it's fine, of course it's going to be fine, but just because other people may have the same idea, so before you invite them, like next month we're going to get the Edward Don representative here. And so we have that, so look at the next month. We don't want to stack up with like 3 speakers where our guests are sitting and waiting for other presentations, so.
No. Task B, members volunteer to arrange individual presentations. We were just talking about that. Is there any other additional comments for goal 2, task A or B? We'll move on to goal 3.
I think goal 3 we just discussed.
Right.
You know, we just hashed that out, how it's going to be supporting the goals and initiatives as presented in the Stormwater Master Plan. I think that's all of that. Every task in there is going to be rewarded to support that.
Okay, without going through all of goal 3, assist in the creation of toolkits for BMPs, LED, and green infrastructure planning, does anybody on the board have any comments for task A, B, C, or D? Just take a minute for everybody to review before I move on. If there's no additional comments on goal 3, we'll move on to goal 4. Educational signage at city parks And is that stormwater features, SW features? What is that?
Stormwater,
Okay.
yeah. Sorry.
Task A, coordinate with Parks and Stormwater Department on outreach opportunities. I guess we were just talking about that. Does anybody have any comment on Task A, Goal 4? Task B, research what pre-made signage is available and what grants may be available. And I guess that's coming. Okay. Does anybody have any additional comments on Goal 4? If not, we're going to move on to our final initiative, initiative number 6. Promote the city's overall livability through the promotion of active transportation, increasing the connectivity among trails and pathways, and promoting nature-based tourism. Goal 1, review city map and current county master plans through Transportation MPO Greenways Plan regarding sidewalks, trails, and bike lanes. Under that goal, the task A would be to conduct walking or biking tours, audits to determine gaps and opportunities. That sounds like something Ruth may be interested in.
Mm-hmm.
But does anybody have any other comments on task A? On task B, determine if there are areas that pose challenges to foot and bike traffic and why. And again, Ruth had made a couple comments before of her walking across some of the intersections, as well as I've made comments too. I have a daughter who lives with disabilities, and we use the wheelchair a lot, and we walk a lot. Or I should say, her mother walks a lot. That's something that we can always bring if needed, though. Does anybody else have any comments on task B or task A? Goal 2 would be to seek opportunities to cross-market the city's parks and green spaces. Task A would be to work with the Chamber of Commerce to learn ways the city's natural assets are being marketed. That would be mostly through our web design and things like that. Do we put those types of things on the web?
It's through the Chamber of Commerce site.
Just strictly through the chamber?
Yeah, they handle that. That's what we were discussing last meeting. That's really their area, and so we'll just, that's a great idea for a speaker. Just bring someone from Chamber of Commerce.
As I look around and see ways of making real money in the future, I think that is one of Sebastian's aces, is the ecotourism and everything else we have to offer here, because we don't really have a large manufacturing base. We have one medium-sized hospital for medical, and our college system is pretty much limited to what we have next door.
Well, we're the home of Pelican Island, so certainly our natural features are primary here.
That's our big ticket draw is Pelican Island.
Well, you have Captain Hiram's, you have the kayak launch area on Sebastian River.
Yeah. Now, getting with the chamber to market these things, do we have any dollars for them for cross-marketing? Nothing?
They handle that, but let's see what they do and what, maybe there's input, maybe there's an area that they would like assistance in or like feedback in.
Okay.
But it's their programs, it's not for us to dictate how it'll be run.
Does anybody else have any comments on that? I'll move on to task B. Would you like to get some water, Mrs. Frazier?
Drink all my water. I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I just see you enjoying your water so much over there.
I'm dry mouth. I would recommend that task B and task A get, again, consolidated. Because you're talking about, like you stated, Mr. Chair, ecotourism and nature-based tourism, and a lot of that is, the marketing of it is handled by the chamber. So perhaps those two, task A and B, could be combined to say as much more what Kim is saying about, working with the chamber to identify, what our markets might be and to work with them in promoting. Just a suggestion, but again, streamline.
So you'd like to combine Task A and Task B
Just a suggestion.
to identify unique natural features within parks and coordinating nature-based markets to increase tourism awareness, and we take that as the platform to Chamber of Commerce.
And I don't understand completely the roles of the chamber when it comes to that. So you would know better than I would what works combined like that, for sure.
Task C would be to research what certifications or designations are attainable as far as for our parks and our city itself, like.
We're a tree city.
Right.
Things like that. What kind of neat things and designations can we get noted for?
Out there.
Helps.
Well, because you never know, because I'm in people's houses every day. I'm in probably 7 or 8 different people's houses right now. And I can honestly tell you, you do not know what's going to help these people spend their money. And you just never know. It could be some simple designation. It could be the greenways. It could be something really big like Pelican Island to bring them here and spend their money and, again, go back home. Is there any other input for Task C for research what certifications are attainable? Is there any way of getting a list of that? Because I wouldn't know either.
Who knows what else out there?
Okay. That's what the research part is. We're going to move on to goal 3. Utilize GPS, geocaching related tools, games, and apps to increase visitation to the city's natural tourism and historic points of interest. Task A would be to develop a Munzee scavenger hunt across points of interest. Who would do that?
There are actually groups. There's actually clubs and organizations and communities. There's a Space Coast Munzee organization, and they do things like that when we're ready to.
That's pretty neat,
discuss
that
it fully.
geocaching. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it or not, but you follow your coordinates, you go to these places, and you find this box of stuff that people have left behind that have been there before, and you leave a little something to show them that you've been there, a little something in the box. But it's pretty neat. It brings in a lot of people.
How Munzee's different is Munzee actually, it's like a QR code that you scan. So you have these special stickers. So they don't require a box hidden in a public space. We don't want to bring attention to things like that, especially something that's well trafficked. Because when people don't know what geocaching is, then the boxes end up getting disappeared. So when you're talking about real public places, Munzee's better. It's just a small sticker that can go on the back of a sign or on the back of a pole or something like that.
Great idea. I mean, everybody has a cell phone nowadays. You can just QC the code and know what's going on. Is that a budget thing? Is that something we would have to work on getting money for or anything?
No.
Is there any other comment on any of the Task A for Goal 3? Task B would be to utilize the technology to further promote the Aquatic Preserve's Leave No Trace Ethics Initiative. And again, that's just going to be basically getting the word out.
And this was brought up at the end of the last meeting, because these were the only 2 initiatives we were discussing, but we could move that back over to Leave No Trace.
Yeah, some of these things seem to be getting a little repetitive.
It gets, well,
Yes.
and again, that happens when you're at different meetings, you're discussing it, and then it becomes all this crossover, so that's where the cleaning things up comes in. So we move it over to Goal 3 under Initiative 1.
Right.
Everyone okay with that?
Yes, I am.
Sure.
Any comment from the rest of the board? Okay, that looks like that takes us through new business, item A. Is there any additional comment from anybody?
This is Jessica. Yeah, I just want to thank Kim for all of her hard work and to the board members. This was a lot of information and compiling it, and appreciate everybody's time and putting it together. Looks great.
Thank you, Jessica, for your input. Is there any additional input? Okay, we'll move on under item 6, item B, NRB website edits.
So on that, I would like to request that we table that for now. I needed to arrange a meeting with MIS before we could have this discussion, and I wasn't able to do that because a couple things came up this week, so.
I'm okay with that.
Why don't we table that till November so that October we can spend on the comp plan?
Is the rest of the board got any comment on tabling NRB website edits to the November meeting? So we can talk about everything we spoke about on the October?
I will still continue with making the changes that we've already discussed, and things will still be changing with it, but we just won't be discussing it.
Right. Yes, ma'am. Any comment on that from anybody? Okay, that takes us to item C, NRB budget status, expenditure and surplus. Okay, so our budget was, as you know, was decreased for the 2019-2020 fiscal year. We spent some money on the Christmas parade supplies, and then we started planning for Earth Day, and we had extra funds given to us for Sustainable Sebastian merchandise, which we got quotes on. We agreed on what items we wanted. I did get the seeds and seed packets in, but the other items I did not get in because those businesses closed right after we made these decisions. They reopened, and I'm going to go ahead with the merchandise we already agreed to and the amount we were going to put into it. We will still need that merchandise, so since we were budgeted for it now, we're going to go ahead and get those items. Their things are easy to store, the stickers and just updated information, because all that was for the Earth Day release.
It wasn't going to have any dates on it. It was just Sustainable Sebastian.
Okay, all right.
It was just logoed Sustainable Sebastian. And it'll be nice to have it on hand because we never know what opportunity we may have that we can use it for outreach. So, and that leaves us with about 500 left in the budget. And we have a couple weeks that I need to have an invoice in on it ASAP. If we have something we want to spend it on, if not, it gets swept up.
Is this a type of, I know if we don't use it, we'll lose it, but will it be taken out of our budget for next year?
No.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. So that happened before where we didn't spend it. We're not being penalized for not spending things on Earth Day when an event didn't happen. Didn't happen, so we didn't have the opportunity to. We are not being penalized. At this point, I mean, the budget hasn't been approved, but at this point, we are not penalized.
So we have to vote on a $500 surplus?
Discuss what ideas we'd like. I could roll it into Sustainable Sebastian merchandise and just get some more of the things we're already getting. I
know things are really tight right now with everything. I don't really have anything to spend the additional 500 on, other than I would just be spending it.
Right.
So I don't have any recommendations because I just don't have anything in front of me that I know what we need to spend on. With that in mind, it would be my recommendation just to give the money back, as long as I know I'm not going to lose it out of next year's budget, because I did get appointed again. So I'll be here. If I can get some comments.
A thought.
Yes, Ruth, go ahead.
Hi, this is Ruth. I have a comment that we previously discussed a couple of things that included the potential to have some input from public school kids to maybe have a contest. Didn't know if we wanted to reward for, what our, like a T-shirt giveaway in the future for next year's Earth Day, where they have like a T-shirt design contest that we could start running this year, but have that prize money set aside for it. Another thing was we talked about getting marketing materials specifically for, the one page, what is sustainable Sebastian? I think we previously had it as an agenda item for today, but I'm not commenting on that necessarily, but just to say we have it as something to do. And if we need to get that material out in some way, that might be a printed material, even if it's handing to business and, getting word out. Those are two ideas that we've discussed in the past. I'm bringing them up for other people to maybe comment if that's something worth spending the surplus on.
Hey, this is Jessica. Definitely agree with the advertisements that we discussed last meeting, because I'm sure that even if we run something in the paper or put it somewhere, that's going to cost money, or even if we develop a material and have to distribute it. So anything that we can utilize those funds for part of that sustainable Sebastianing marketing materials, to get additional items that we had already agreed upon, and then the advertisement, I'm definitely in supportive of.
Okay, just to be sure. Go ahead.
This is Nikki. I just have a quick recommendation. I agree with what has been previously said. One of the things I think we had kind of bounced around an idea about purchasing reusable mugs or cups at one of the meetings, and I think it was related to Earth Day, but it might be nice maybe, and I don't know again if we can use this, but purchasing something that has Sustainable Sebastian on it and providing them for city council members so that they're not using plastic water bottles at the meetings.
That was in the original estimate of the original materials that we're going to go forward with, yeah.
Okay, all right, gotcha.
Thank you.
Is this do we have to decide on the surplus today, or can we, yeah, okay.
And I'm sorry I stepped out of the room, but I'm assuming Kim let you all know that we have till September 14th. So,
September 14th.
Did you tell them that? Okay.
Today.
So, if you want to add to some of the items that are on order, that may be the easiest, or...
Like they were saying, incorporating like some marketing material or a brochure or...
yeah, I know, but what that has to be then, again, it's September 1st.
Yeah, you have a time constraint there.
Right,
so
exactly.
The best thing to do would be to purchase some of the things that you were going to purchase anyway, increase your numbers so we have that supply for next year.
Right.
Does media or IT, do they require any funds to do anything? No?
It doesn't work that way.
Okay.
Yeah, you can't play with budget lines.
Right. Don't mess with their budget. I've learned that sitting here. Yeah. Okay, well, let's, if I can get a motion on the table to send the surplus that is left over, approximately $500, to additional sustainable Sebastian marketing merchandise that we've already approved. I'll just stop it right there. Can I get a motion to extend that surplus to that program?
Charles, if I could just input one more thing, sorry.
Yes,
would
ma'am.
that include additional seeds as well? Because I feel like that might be something we could utilize and be able to hand out to citizens.
Sure, and the materials bought for 400 seed packets only cost $68, so we can do another round just like that.
That sounds fine.
Because the seed packets, would that be for Earth Day events and also parade? Because I know that was one of our comments.
And the Christmas parade, so that we can already have those purchased.
Can I get a motion to send the $500 to the programs for Sustainable Sebastian?
I'll make the motion, Charles.
Tom has motion. Can I get a second?
This is Jessica. I can second.
Jessica seconded his motion. Can we get a voice vote?
Aye.
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 Are there any nays? It looks like the motion has passed to send the $500 to the Sustainable Sebastian program. Are there any additional comments on item C for NRB budget status? We'll move on to item 7 then, old business. Is there any old business anybody needs to discuss? Okay, then we'll move on to, I'll just ask one thing under old business. Do we have to approve the minutes from the last meeting?
I just wrote a note on your thing.
I seen that. I didn't realize that.
They aren't available.
Okay, all right, gotcha. Okay.
Next time.
Old business.
I have one item, so can we put the development of the one-page flyer back somewhere on an agenda if it's not appropriate for October, maybe make sure we get it on November again?
It's still on my action list, and that's where I think November will bump the item that we bumped last time of discuss outreach for and raising awareness of Sustainable Sebastian.
Okay.
Okay.
Is there any additional comments for old business? We'll move on to item 8, member matters. And I guess we'll start with Tom because he's in here.
No, I've got nothing at this time.
Ruth, do you have anything?
I do not.
Ms. Graham, do you have anything?
No.
Ms. Sublette, do you have anything?
No.
Jessica, do you have anything?
No, sir, thank you.
And our newest member, Mr. Bradley?
No.
And I don't know if Barbara's online or not. Just asking if she has any member matters.
That's
Nope, I'm right here.
That's Barbara.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. I haven't heard anything from you. The only thing that I would like to say is that the trash can at the main boat ramp next to Rotary Park, there's a trash receptacle there for people to throw in. It's a metal receptacle. When we did the coastal cleanup, I started from Main Street boat ramp and went north, and I had to go back home and get a rake to rake up the garbage underneath the Rotary catwalk there that goes out, the Rotary dock looking thing that goes out into the water, because it looks like the garbage from that garbage can either gets taken out by animals or it just blows out. And I didn't know if we could somehow get a different garbage receptacle there, or something with a lid, or something, because it's really a bad problem. We had a group of international Rotarians come in, and they all go around looking and go, "Oh, how nice it is." Their words out of their mouth was, "Wow, beautiful place, but a lot of garbage." And when I was doing the coastal cleanup for the second time, it's definitely coming from that can, and it's not just garbage that people lose out of their boat. It's bags of garbage. So that's how I know it's coming out of that.
I think both the garbage cans at each of the launch ramps get filled way too quickly, and they may need more capacity there.
Yeah, whatever the problem is, they're not adequate.
Dumpster, they would still fill it.
Yeah. Because we got to do something, because that one particular can, the garbage is coming from that spot for sure. I'm very, very positive of that after spending a couple of years now. And as a Rotarian, I was personally embarrassed by the comments that the international team had come from around the world. These people are from everywhere, and their comment was, beautiful location, just a lot of garbage. And the way to take care of that would be to change that receptacle. And I know that's my only member matters for tonight, and that's all I have. Is there any additional comment under member matters? We'll move on to staff matters. How's staff? You guys do a great job, by the way. Thanks for everything. If there's no staff matters, then we'll move on to items for next agenda.
we're,
Go ahead.
sorry, I apologize. We're going to scrap everything. We're going to do the comp plan element review. So I can get that agenda out to you as soon as that material's ready. And then we're going to discuss that ADIL program that's on October 24th. And we want to think about that, if they're interested in volunteering for that. It's a day in the life. The snapshot water quality day, testing day. We work with Orca and See a Difference organizations on that. But we'll discuss that.
Thank you for that. Is there any additional comments for items for next agenda? All right, if there's no additional comments for anybody, we'll adjourn this meeting. Sebastian Natural Resource Board.